Do you dream about your next trip? You're in the right place. On the Time to Talk Travel podcast, we come to you weekly to share places to go and what to do when you get there. Let's dive into this week's adventure.
Welcome back to another episode of Time to Talk Travel. Today we're going to chat about summer travel trends. Some of the trends that we're going to try to touch on are things like coolcations, a rise in homes as destinations that have extra outdoor amenities, destination dupes, which are also falling into set jetting that we're going to jump off with, and one we covered last time, and that was tech-free travel. And so we're not even going to probably touch on that one because that was enough time talking about no cell phones for me. But set jetting is obviously a really popular one with us. We love talking about where movies take place. Trend itself is destination dupes. Where are you going to go that is going to look like somewhere with the vibe and the trend that everyone's going for, but it may be less expensive or less crowded, easier to book?
When I think set jetting, I have a girlfriend who's planning retreats right now that follow Outlander in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
They are hitting lots of lesser known spots in Scotland, and that one sells out every time. She does it twice a year and people eat it up. When I hear destination dupes, I'm hearing instead of Barcelona, what is it? I like Budapest, I think someone is saying similar, or Chicago instead of New York City. Those are some of the more popular destination dupes that I read about that I thought, that's interesting. And Montreal instead of Brussels. I never would have thought they would be similar. But when I think about it, I think St. Augustine, Florida instead of Europe, because it gives the same vibe without needing a passport kind of thing. But those are the ones that come top of mind for me.
It might be because I'm on the East Coast, but I know that sometimes when people will start talking about Hawaii, if you're in Boston, that is a long trip. Connections, cost, Hawaii's expensive, hard to book. A lot of people out here may go to Azores. How do I say that?
Azores?
Okay. I'm like sitting there going, I'm not confident in how I'm saying it now. Same kind of feel, less expensive, much shorter flight, much more affordable flight. If you live on the West Coast, Hawaii is probably an easier time for you.
That's true. But when I went to Cabo San Lucas, there were so many Californians there, and they said they were tired of Hawaii. So they were hitting Cabo. I thought that was super interesting. So.
I mean, I don't see people saying they're sick of Hawaii. I don't hear that very often here in California, but it is still very expensive to go to Hawaii. It's still an expensive flight and an expensive destination, and Cabo is a lot cheaper than going to Hawaii. So I could see that. I don't know if it's Azores or Azores, which is the funny thing is my family is from there. I have lineage from there, but it's the black sand beaches. Where else are you getting those black sand beaches like that? What about Quebec City? That is a destination that I have been to on the East Coast that I just was like surprised and blown away by how much it felt like you were in Europe.
Yeah, that, and what's the other one near there? Saguenay. They have the festivals. I used to go to Montreal a lot when I lived in Vermont, and it does have a very different feel. French is the main language there, so it does have that different feeling without necessarily a flight based on where you are located.
When I look at the summer trends, another one that I see that I know people are jumping on is entertainment travel. And this is all Taylor Swift, man. I have so many friends who have now gone to Paris and Madrid, and they're just following her around Europe because they couldn't get the tickets here in the States. And so when she booked a European tour, they just made family vacation out of it. I have so many friends who did Paris, and one that's in Madrid, went to the concert just last night. They're just over the moon because they're seeing Taylor and they're seeing Spain.
There was a Mastercard survey that I looked at that was talking about the Taylor Swift effect on spending, because they can look at anonymized credit card spending, and restaurants within 2 miles of a Taylor Swift concert saw like a 68% jump in revenue when she was there. It was fascinating. But the other ones are, we're going to see the Olympics this summer and Paris, but that is shaky right now. If you're watching the TikToks, like the Parisians aren't happy about it. There's a lot of plans to not make it a smooth process. It sounds like it could be an interesting trip if that's one you're doing. The other ones that came up were things like cricket tournaments. There's a big cricket tournament that people are traveling to. Some of the top countries were Albania, which apparently is a travel dupe for Croatia, but also a tiny part of me is like, something else must be happening there. It jumped into the top 10.
Yeah, a lot of people are going, a lot of Europeans are going to Albania. I know when I was on a cruise a couple of years ago, I met a friend in Montenegro. This is like, so it was just like a random crazy thing, but a friend of mine was doing a road trip up the coast through Albania, through Montenegro, and to Croatia. And my cruise ship had been diverted. We were supposed to stop in Corfu, but we went to Montenegro instead. And it was just like random happenstance. My friend was driving through Montenegro that day. We met up in Montenegro. And she told me all about her travels in Albania. I saw the pictures and I can see why it's so cheap. If you're a little bit intrepid, it's really gorgeous.
And they have a ton of national parks, and it's something like 300 sunny days a year. And so I can see it. It's funny because it really is one of those trends where I saw travel writers I knew going there a year ago, and now all of a sudden it's on Mastercard's top 10 list. So if that doesn't speak to the power of using some influencers or travel writers or journalists to get the word out there, I'm not saying they did it all, but you got to think that might have been part of it.
Yeah, they're the early adopters of new destinations for sure. Here's a trend that I saw that kind of hits on all of your trends, Naz. It's not entertainment in terms of movies, but in terms of books. I read an article in a Far magazine about how mystery books are leading the charge for people's destination planning, and specifically Scandinavian mysteries, coolcations, heading to destinations that aren't quite as hot in Europe, are a big trend right now. So people are planning trips to Norway and Sweden based on these Swedish mysteries. And I'm not a big mystery reader either. I've never been so uncool because I don't read mysteries. I'm not a Swiftie. Like, I just like to go to places.
Same. So yes, and it's a great segue. The coolcation that Ciaran just brought up is this idea of going somewhere more moderate. Essentially, it's driven by global warming. People are having hotter and hotter summers. So people are selecting to go somewhere where they can spend time outdoors, but the climate is going to be more moderate for them. I know that when we were in Texas, I would be psyched to come up to New Hampshire every summer because I might have to put on like a little windbreaker at night and be cold. Virtuoso, which is a study, they're a magazine and travel service geared towards luxury travelers, that 75% of travelers were looking to go somewhere more moderate or cooler than where they currently were located during the summer, that they wanted to have a coolcation, which I got to admit, I saw coolcation when it was first written and I was like, but it's like shades and we're like super hip, but it's traveling to beat the heat a little bit.
I get that. I spent last weekend in Vero Beach, Florida, and it was still May and it was mid-90s and it was hot. But you're on the beach, you're on the coast, so it's easy to get cool quickly. You just take a dip in the pool or go out in the ocean. Very easy, but you're in Atlanta, Georgia, and it is not as easy to beat that heat. So I'm with them. I'd be all for Iceland right now.
We did a Scandinavian trip one summer. We flew to Sweden and then we did ferries between Helsinki and Tallinn. Didn't make it to Riga. I wanted to go to Riga. I call it our Baltic cruise, but it wasn't a cruise. It was just us bushwhacking from location to location. And it was like one of our best family vacations ever. And we were never hot. Nobody was complaining about being too hot on that vacation. If anything, we had to buy some warmer clothes because it was quite chilly. And we were there in August. So that really says something.
Yeah.
To those trips like the Greek islands and destination dupes. There's a lot of places you can go in Greece that are less crowded, and I recommend it because you'll be able to actually get in the water as opposed to just being squished like a sardine in Santorini in summer. Not fun.
No, definitely. And I know that for me, and maybe I'm going in my gloom and doom direction, my what could go wrong? What do I need to plan for direction? You go somewhere hot during the summer. There's a beach there and it's great and you get to go in the water. But if you're in Florida for summer vacation, and there's a storm, something goes wrong, power goes out, you get stuck for extra days because the airlines can't fly. Now you're somewhere that's like super hot with no AC, just trying to melt and survive. If I go somewhere cooler and that same thing happens, I'm comfortable. I'm not like,
So much of Europe that used to be cool, though, actually isn't cool because I got stuck in the Czech Republic a few summers ago. It was during a severe heat wave, and nobody has air conditioning there. It's just not a thing.
Mhm.
And they didn't even have fans in the room. Some of the windows didn't open, and it was 103 degrees outside. I was on the
Yeah.
fifth story of a walk up building with a window that didn't open and no fan. So, if you are thinking about worst case scenarios, if you're planning a trip to a landlocked area in Europe during the summer, think about how you're going to stay cool if there is a random heat wave, because it can happen and it is brutal.
Yeah, check it wherever you're staying. It's a question to ask. To me, it's a given. I grew up in the South. Everybody's got AC. But as Naz explained, that's not the case.
No. I grew up in New Hampshire with no AC. We don't have AC in our house in New Hampshire right now. We have window conditioners that we put into the rooms, and we've got concrete floors on the first floor, so it's very cool, but we don't have a central AC. Check the amenities. That goes into another trend that Airbnb put out, which is this whole trend of their play category, which has the fun houses, the ones that have a bowling alley inside of them, or maybe a full mini golf course in the backyard or a water park. That category on Airbnb more than doubled over the past year. And in that same thread, people are looking at these houses as destinations. Right now, spending is going up for baby boomers, and they're planning more extended family trips. People are looking for these houses that are a destination in and of themselves because they have so much cool stuff in them. And that's a trend that's fun because it doesn't rely as much on everything outside of it. It's time with your family and a really cool house.
I think it's really interesting. I'm seeing a lot of that in my local market. People taking their homes and turning them into a mini destination resort because I am coastal here. And I actually even looked at renting one or two of them after my house sells and my kids are all home from college. I think that it would make a lot of sense because we want family time, but it's really hard to have family time when you're downsizing and you don't have a place where everyone can stay comfortably. So this idea that everyone can be comfortable and everybody can have fun, but you're not in this resort or cruise ship where you're all going to disperse. Like you can have family time as if you're at home, but way better is just so appealing. I totally get it.
Yeah.
That's an interesting trend also. I don't know if you've seen it on Airbnb. They have an icon tab now where you can book different experiences. And one is stay in the up house. And I feel like there was one that was the
I just saw that one. That one's awesome looking.
When I first saw it, I thought it was made up. I'm like, core memories with Inside Out 2 or stay in Prince's Purple Rain house or the clock room of the Musée.
The Musée. Yep. That one as well was a big one. Yep. And they have the Barbie Dream House in Malibu.
And design your edible super suit that's hosted by Edna Mode. I'm like, okay, are these for real or are these just like fantasy houses?
This is literally the next generation of these campaigns we used to do as bloggers where somebody would contact us and be like, we want to do this activation or this campaign where we're all going to create content around this to create a buzz. This is the new way brands are doing this. These pop-ups and these special houses and all of these things are becoming more and more of a way for a brand to partner with a destination and for them to have this cool experience for consumers, but it's an ad. It's all a giant ad spend for them. My son wanted to drive to New York, 3-hour drive on the Friday of Memorial Day weekend. We did not do it because they had a pop-up Cheese-In diner in Woodstock, New York. It was an activation with this whole Cheez-It themed thing. Same thing like Shrek's Swamp in the Highlands. It looks awesome, right? It says you're hosted by Donkey. And there's earwax candles. But I guarantee you, if we looked further into this, there's someone sponsoring this. Universal Studios.
Super cool. That are growing for summer are last minute vacations where people typically book 6 to 9 months out. And now because there's more flexibility working from home, last minute trips are becoming more and more popular. Those are easy to find now. I live for that stuff. I love it. Those are great. And fewer solo trips. And I can see that as well. More and more people, it's so easy now to find Facebook groups where people have common interests. I joined one last week. It had 182,000 members of women only who like luxury travel that are just looking for friends to travel with. They don't want to go by themselves. And what a treasure trove of people. It's just these women have these amazing stories. I've already talked to probably 20 of them over the weekend. Before I hopped on here, I was having a Zoom call with one of them. She oversees marketing for the lesser known Italy villages. And her job is to try and pull people from Rome and Venice and get them into these little tiny villages that are beautiful that no one goes to.
That's a trend too. So that hits on two trends, right? Because there is a trend of this quiet travel that they're calling it, where you're going to get away from it all. Your life is too much. There's a lot going on. So you are going to go to a little village, a rural area, the woods, somewhere quiet, and you're going to just have a quiet family vacation. And then the other one was, you said solo travel, and that's so funny because that one is very age specific. Solo travel is going down in those of us who are getting a little older. However, in the younger groups, it's not going down, it's increasing. But a lot of times those solo travel trips involve staying somewhere where you're going to meet other people, or you're going to be in a co-working space while you're there and see other people, and you're meeting up once you get there with other people who are solo traveling. But it's an interesting kind of breakdown in the age ranges for that one.
Yeah. These are my people. I love meeting all of these women, whether they've been divorced or widowed, or their husband just doesn't feel like traveling. And they're like, well, I'm not staying home anymore. Not another day. I have time now. I have money, and I'm ready to go. And I love it. They're doing amazing things. They're just super interesting people. You don't have to travel solo anymore. There are so many easy ways to find these groups. And it's my jam now, she used a term, I'm going to say the wrong one. It starts with a P, but in Italian, it means bridge. She is the I have to look it up, but she is the bridge that connects people. I love that term. I want to be a bridge. I feel like I'm a bridge.
You're totally a bridge.
As a podcast, we're the bridge. We're the people that tell others about places they should go, where they could go, and hopefully inspire ideas. But I love it. These lesser off the beaten path kind of places. That's where you meet real people and go to the real restaurants. That's how I felt about Arcos, Spain when I went last year. We only went there because it was my boyfriend's ancestral village, and he just wanted to see the altar somebody in his family donated 300 years ago. We flew into Seville and then rented a car to go to this little city, Arcos, Spain, which I honestly was like, it's going to be 2 days wasted. I'd rather just get on up to Amsterdam. It was probably one of my favorite parts of the trip. It's just this very quiet, quaint, white painted village that made it feel a little like Santorini. It's just perfect. It's so small that you can't help but meet all the villagers. And you walk up the hill they walk up every day, and you see how they're in great shape because that hill is brutal. I love the off the beaten path places now.
I have always been a fan of off the beaten path places. That is where I'm totally on trend. I've never been a big person for crowds. Instead of going to Santorini last time we went to Greece, we went to Nafplion, which is a little village on the coast of the peninsula. Easy drive from Athens. You can just rent a car and just go there on your own. Food was so much cheaper. We got fantastic boutique accommodations. I think it's become a little more popular, but I don't think we heard anybody speaking English the whole time we were there. There were no American tourists, but it was just like this charming village. When we were in Italy, we went to Lerici and Poets Bay. We went to Capalbio and Argentario on the Tuscan coast. All of these places, the food was fantastic, and we were not fighting with other tourists, and people were genuinely welcoming to us because we were a novelty to them, but also there were Italian tourists there. We weren't the only tourists, but it was not as crowded, and they weren't angry about all the annoying, rude, ugly Americans who were ruining it for everybody. You go to the big cities, and there's a lot of ugly Americans out there really trampling on destinations. So it's nice to get away from the pack.
And it's cool to see some of those lesser traveled areas. I know when I was in Lithuania and Klaipėda, we went over to the Curionian Spit, And it's this national park area that's a sandy stretch that runs along the mainland, but you take a ferry to get over to it. There were all these wood carvings, and you wander through the forest trails, and it's much cooler, and there's places selling amber and all these cute little like sailboaty shops. Looked like Cape Cod to me. It was just so neat to see that somewhere else. I always love looking when I go places what looks like somewhere else to me. Oh, that is so weird. You'd think you'd see that here. And I just always look for those little details, but definitely seeking out some of those quieter, unique destinations and really getting immersed. The immersion travel is a big one. People want to feel connected to where they're going. Hotels are doing things like bringing in an artist in residence or someone to talk about the local area. And we've seen that increasing over the years. And I think people are really looking for that when they're picking somewhere out.
One other thing that I would want to point out about going to these smaller destinations is there's this real aspect of decision fatigue. You wake up on a cruise and there's that newsletter under your door with the like 1,700 things that are happening every single day on the cruise. It's stressful. I have to go relax at the spa between this hour and this hour when the facials are half price. And then I have to go to this activity and then I have to be at this restaurant for dinner. That is not relaxing. And a lot of us, our vacation time is our time to reset and relax. So when we went to Nafplion, I spoke to some friends who are Greek travel experts. And I said, where can I go where there's a lot of things to see and do? But if I don't do them all, if I skip 5 of them, I'm not going to regret it for the rest of my life and feel like, oh, I missed out. That was my one chance to see whatever. I think there's really something to be said for a trip where you can have enough to do, but not too much to do.
It's interesting it hits you that way, Ciaran, because I see the cruise thing and I'm like, oh, something for everybody. I don't feel in any way obligated to do all the things.
So much
my butt's
anymore.
on the lounge chair. I don't think I've ever done the spa on a cruise. I'm just like, who waits to get their nails done on the cruise? I remember my best friend did get a facial on a cruise once. And
I got a massage. It was lovely.
Yeah, I have to say, I used to be that way on cruises, but now I've been on enough cruises that I'm like, yeah, that's not for me. And I find my spot on the ship and I'm like, I'll be there. But Norwegian has a phenomenal hydro spa with all different like cold plunge and hot plunge and like hot stone lounges. And you can just get a day pass and totally worth it. If you're going to do a spa on a cruise, that one is great.
And one of their other flagship brands under there is Regent, and they've got like the sauna rooms or the heat rooms. They've got cold rooms on some of the ship, and they're included because their cruises are all inclusive. The spa treatments aren't, but access to some of those other items you can get into. But it's funny because Pinterest is so interesting to me because there are all these people who come out with studies and they're very official. Mastercard is giving a spending study and all these different companies are doing the vacation trend studies and what are people doing and what are the 10 most booked destinations and all that. And I think in a lot of cases, some of the more official ones are not as correct. If I look at Deloitte's study on vacation travel for the summer, I don't think they nailed it. I think that they made some assumptions and that they weren't correct. Sorry, Deloitte. Not sorry. But Pinterest, on the other hand, they'll go through and talk about what they're seeing people pin as they're planning. They have that insight into the planning process, and they also have the insight into what people are trying to push. When we're writing articles, we're trying to put stuff out how many months in advance to make sure it takes hold on Pinterest and gets pinned. So Pinterest summer trends are, again, the quiet life travel soared. Searches went up 530%. And like quiet places, calm places, but also experiences like travel journal pages, wellness retreat aesthetic, cabin in the mountains, forest walk, like national parks, things like that went up. And village vibes, which is hilarious because that goes back to the whole Italian village thing. But also at the same time, an increase in adventure travel up 45%. But it's things like trekking, adventure camping, caving, hiking trail. Again, there is this kind of getting back to outdoors or more intimate experiences. Maybe we had COVID, we went through the pandemic, we missed people, we got back out, we saw them, we remembered that it wasn't that bad without them. And now we're like, let's just do stuff with people we like. That's my assessment of the world right now. Ugh.
I really like that. We don't need people. Who needs people?
Just find the ones you like and go to a village with them. In Italy, there are unsung villages, and Desiree can let you know where those are.
I can tell you right now, you need to go to this. It's Borghi, Borghi. We can put it in the comments, but they have a whole guide and it's massive. I'm at a place in my life where Ciaran knows this. I spend 30 minutes a day looking at the Italian villas to buy so that I could just move off to Italy. I can't yet. I had to pull myself back in and say, okay, that's the 10 years down the line plan, not the today plan. The today plan, I have to restrain myself. There's a lot going on, and I like these summer trends. I think they're fun and different, and
there's something for everyone.
Yeah, there really is. I'm going to touch one more just because it makes me this one makes me happy, okay? The worst part of summer travel is delays and sitting in airports and just the misery of it all and not knowing what's going on and everything like that. There are multiple studies and trends that show that Gen Z is now getting into road tripping. And that is like a big emerging trend for them. Welcome. It's better. Don't sit in an airport this summer. Get in a car with your friends and make some memories.
I think it depends on who you're road tripping with, man.
Right, people, but you'll very firmly establish who you want to remain friends with and who you won't.
Yeah.
You can always get
Gen Z's son and his two besties just did a road trip from Oregon to Southern California and back, which is like an 18-hour drive from where they are to where we are. And they did it in 5 days. It was like a 5-day turnaround. They had a long weekend, but they had the best time. And I will tell you, those kids planned every second of the trip. Who was driving? What snacks they were bringing? They made a playlist. They had every road stop between here and there mapped out. They stopped at all these fabulous kitschy places. So yes, Gen Z, there is hope. They're doing it. They're picking up that torch that we lit.
I just love it. I just love it. I remember when I was in high school, we graduated, and this group of a couple guys from my grade had planned out this road trip to go see something like 15 ballparks and go to a game at all of them. And it's just so cool. I love the theme of it. I love it. I'm so excited that's a trend for them because road trips are unsung, underrated, like, oh, I love road trips.
I agree. And they're much easier now. I will say I've done 3 road trips in the last 2 weeks. One was a 6.5-hour drive there and back for 2-day stay. The other was a 10-hour drive there and back for a 3-day stay, 2 nights. And then the last one was an 8.5-hour drive for a 3-night stay and there and back. And I would not have gotten through without podcasts. Road trips are such a different experience for me. I put on some Mel Robbins and that woman builds me up. I put on our podcast and I get to listen about going to travels, and it helps pass the time so much. And it was funny, this last one, my boyfriend came along with me to Florida and he goes, please tell me we're each listening to our own thing. And I'm like, fine. You don't have to hear Mel Robbins all morning. Her and another podcast, if after you're done listening to ours, that I'm hooked on, is Julia Louis-Dreyfus, the Wiser Than Me. Oh gosh, that is just
gonna say you should quiz them. You should be like, you can listen to your own thing after you tell me what the themes of several of our last episodes were, and if you pass, then you can listen to your own thing.
Good stuff. It does make road trips much easier these days. I think the fact that you have easy entertainment and good company along the way and good snacks always a win.
Snacks are key. Yeah. So we have covered. Are there any other trends we want to throw out there? You said astro travel, so I'm going to mention it briefly. Travel. Yes, so astrology travel. So apparently,
astronomy, not astrology.
Astronomy. I saw astrology as one.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, okay, it was like, where should you go based on your zodiac?
Oh, no, I saw astronomy, like places to go where you can watch the night sky.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that goes right in with the quiet travel village, like unwind thing. However, there were 3 small pieces that I saw on picking destinations based on your zodiac. Look into that one further. We didn't do
both. If you call it astro, it fits under both. It's an umbrella for both. So.
Oh, yeah. Figure out which your constellation is and then go stay right underneath it.
Okay.
Let us know what you're doing this summer, if you're following any of the trends or if you're doing anything that's the complete opposite of them, because as we've learned, studies aren't always right. Thank you for joining us. Yeah.
Hey, if you like our podcast, give us a review, give us some stars. That's the way that they keep pumping us up. And that is a hard ask for a lot of people. But since we have you listening right now, jump in and do
Please,
that.
please, if you say you like us, if you say you like our podcast, if you're like, oh, you girls are killing it, or like Boss Babes or something else in a Facebook comment ever, and you haven't left us a review left yet, please, thank you. That will make your astrology smile on you. Is that how I'm saying it? Okay, good karma. So let us know where you're going this summer after you leave us a review. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, happy travels.
This has been another episode of Time to Talk Travel, brought to you by #travels.com. You can keep in touch with us between episodes by checking out our site, joining our newsletter, or connecting with us on social. We've always got the information you need in our episode notes. Until next time, happy travels, and thanks for being a part of our trip.